since the existence of the Doomsday Clock. 50. Disarmament. The USSR and United States nuclear weapons stockpiles throughout the Cold War until 2015, with a precipitous drop in total numbers following the end of the Cold War in 1991. Nuclear disarmament refers to both the act of reducing or eliminating nuclear weapons and to the end state of a nuclear-free world, in which nuclear weapons are eliminated. Beginning with the 1963 Partial Test Ban Treaty and continuing through the 1996 Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, there have been many treaties to limit or reduce nuclear weapons testing and stockpiles. The 1968 Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty has as one of its explicit conditions that all signatories must pursue negotiations in good faith towards the long-term goal of complete disarmament. The nuclear weapon states have largely treated that aspect of the agreement as decorative and without force. 51. Only one country, South Africa, has ever fully renounced the nuclear weapons they had independently developed. The former Soviet republics of Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine returned Soviet nuclear arms stationed in their countries to Russia after the collapse of the USSR. Proponents of nuclear disarmament say that it would lessen the probability of nuclear war, especially accidentally. Critics of nuclear disarmament say that it would undermine the present nuclear peace and deterrence and would lead to increased global instability. Various American elder statesmen, 52, who were in office during the Cold War period, have been advocating the elimination of nuclear weapons. These officials include Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, Sun Nunn, and William Perry. In January 2010, Lawrence M. Krauss stated that no issue carries more importance to the long-term health and security of humanity than the effort to reduce, and perhaps one day, rid the world of nuclear weapons. 53. Ukrainian workers use equipment provided by the U.S. Defense Threat Reduction Agency to dismantle a Soviet-era missile silo. After the end of the Cold War, Ukraine and the other non-Russian, post-Soviet republics relinquished Soviet nuclear stockpiles to Russia. In January 1986, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev publicly proposed a three-stage program for abolishing the world's nuclear weapons by the end of the 20th century. 54. In the years after the end of the Cold War, there have been numerous campaigns to urge abolition of nuclear weapons, such as that organized by the Global Zero movement, and the goal of a world without nuclear weapons was advocated by United States President Barack Obama in an April 2009 speech in Prague. 55. A CNN poll from April 2010 indicated that the American public was nearly evenly split on the issue. 56. Some analysts have argued that nuclear weapons have made the world relatively safer, with peace through deterrence and threat instability paradox, including in South Asia. 57. 58. Kenneth Waltz has argued that nuclear weapons have helped keep an uneasy peace, and further, nuclear weapon proliferation might even help avoid the large-scale conventional wars that were succumbed before their invention at the end of World War II. 34. But former Secretary Henry Kissinger says there is a new danger, which cannot be addressed by deterrence. The classical notion of deterrence was that there was some consequences before which aggressors and evildoers would recoil. In a world of suicide bombers, that calculation doesn't operate in any comparable way. 59. George Shultz has said, if you think of the people who are doing suicide attacks, and people like that get a nuclear weapon, they are almost by definition not deterrable. 60. As of early 2019, more than 90% of world's 13,865 nuclear weapons were owned by Russia and the United States. 61. 62. United Nations. The UN Office for Disarmament Affairs, UNODA, is a department of the United Nations Secretariat established in January 1998 as part of the United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan's plan to reform the UN as presented in his report to the General Assembly in July 1997. 63. Its goal is to promote nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation and the strengthening of the disarmament regimes in respect to other weapons of mass destruction, chemical and biological weapons. It also promotes disarmament efforts in the area of conventional weapons, especially landmines and small arms, which are often the weapons of choice in contemporary conflicts. Controversy. Ethics. Anti-nuclear weapons protest march in Oxford, 1980. Even before the first nuclear weapons had been developed, scientists involved with the Manhattan Project were divided over the use of the weapon. The role of the two atomic bombings of the country in Japan's surrender and the U.S.'s ethical justification for them has been the subject of scholarly and popular debate for decades. The question of whether nations should have nuclear weapons, or test them, has been continually and nearly universally controversial. 64. Notable nuclear weapons accidents. The 21st of August, 1945, while conducting experiments on a plutonium-barium core at Los Alamos National Laboratory, physicist Harry Dalian received a lethal dose of radiation when an error caused it to enter prompt criticality. He died 25 days later, on the 15th of September, 1945, from radiation poisoning. 65. The 21st of May, 1946, while conducting further experiments on the same core at Los Alamos National Laboratory, physicist Louis Slotin accidentally caused the core to become briefly supercritical. He received a lethal dose of gamma and neutron radiation, and died 9 days later on the 30th of May, 1946. After the death of Dalian and Slotin, the mass became known as Demon Core. It was ultimately used to construct a bomb for use on the Nevada test range. 66. The 13th of February, 1950, a Convair B-36B crashed in northern British Columbia after jettisoning a Mark IV atomic bomb. This was the first such nuclear weapon loss in history. The accident was designated a broken arrow, an accident involving a nuclear weapon, but which does not present a risk of war. Experts believe that up to 50 nuclear weapons were lost during the Cold War. 67. The 22nd of May, 1957, a 42,000 pound, 19,000 kilograms, Mark 17 hydrogen bomb accidentally fell from a bomber near Albuquerque, New Mexico. The detonation of the device's conventional explosives destroyed it on impact and formed a crater 25 feet, 7.6 m, in diameter on land owned by the University of New Mexico. According to a researcher at the Natural Resources Defense Council, it was one of the most powerful bombs made to date. 68. The 7th of June, 1960. The 1964 Dixon 99 accident destroyed a Boeing CIM-10 Beaumark nuclear missile and shelter and contaminated the Beaumark missile accident site in New Jersey. The 24th of January, 1961. The 1961 Goldsboro B-52 crash occurred near Goldsboro, North Carolina. A Boeing B-52 Stratofortress carrying two Mark 39 nuclear bombs broke up in mid-air, dropping its nuclear payload in the process. 69. 1965 Philippine Sea-4 crash, where a Skyhawk attack aircraft with a nuclear weapon fell into the sea. 70. The pilot, the aircraft, and the B-43 nuclear bomb were never recovered. 71. It was not until 1989 that the Pentagon revealed the loss of the 1 megaton bomb. 72. The 17th of January, 1966. The 1966 Palomares B-52 crash occurred when a B-52G bomber of the USAF collided with a KC-135 tanker during mid-air refueling off the coast of Spain. The KC-135 was completely destroyed when its fuel load ignited, killing all 4 crew members. The B-52G broke apart, killing 3 of the 7 crew members aboard. 73 of the 4 Mk-28 type hydrogen bombs the B-52G carried, 74, 3 were found on land near Almeria, Spain. The non-nuclear explosives in 2 of the weapons detonated upon impact with the ground, resulting in the contamination of a 2 square kilometer, 490 acre, 0.78 square mile, area by radioactive plutonium. The 4th, which fell into the Mediterranean Sea, was recovered intact after a 2-month-long search. 75. The 21st of January, 1968. The 1968 Thule Air Base B-52 crash involved a United States Air Force, USAF, B-52 bomber. The aircraft was carrying 4 hydrogen bombs when a cabin fire forced the crew to abandon the aircraft. 6 crew members ejected safely, but one who did not have an ejection seat was killed while trying to bail out. The bomber crashed onto sea ice in Greenland, causing the nuclear payload to rupture and disperse, which resulted in widespread radioactive contamination. 76. One of the bomb's remains lost. 77. September 18 to 19, 1980. The Damascus accident occurred in Damascus, Arkansas, where a Titan missile equipped with a nuclear warhead exploded. The accident was caused by a maintenance man who dropped a socket from a socket wrench down an 80-foot, 24 m shaft, puncturing a fuel tank on the rocket. Leaking fuel resulted in a hypergolic fuel explosion, jettisoning the W-53 warhead beyond the launch site. 78, 79, 80. Nuclear testing and fallout. Over 500 atmospheric nuclear weapons tests were conducted at various sites around the world from 1945 to 1980. Radioactive fallout from nuclear weapons testing was first drawn to public attention in 1954 when Castle Bravo hydrogen bomb test at the Pacific Proving Grounds contaminated the crew and catch-off Japanese fishing boat Lucky Dragon. 81. One of the fishermen died in Japan 7 months later, and fear of contaminated tuna led to a temporary boycotting of the popular staple in Japan. The incident caused widespread concern around the world, especially regarding the effects of nuclear fallout and atmospheric nuclear testing, and provided a decisive impetus for the emergence of the anti-nuclear weapons movement in many countries. 81. As public awareness and concern mounted over the possible health hazards associated with exposure to nuclear fallout, various studies were done to assess the extent of the hazard. A Centers for Disease Control and Prevention / National Cancer Institute study claims that fallout from atmospheric nuclear tests would. Over 2,000 nuclear tests have been conducted in over a dozen different sites around the world. Red Russia / Soviet Union, blue France, light blue United States, violet Britain, yellow China, orange India, brown Pakistan, green North Korea and light green, territories exposed to nuclear bombs. The black dot indicates the location of the Vila incident. This view of downtown Las Vegas has a mushroom cloud in the background. Scenes such as these were typical during the 1950s. From 1951 to 1962 the government conducted 100 atmospheric tests at the nearby Nevada test site. Lead to perhaps 11,000 excess deaths among people alive during atmospheric testing in the United States from all forms of cancer including leukemia from 1951 to well into the 21st century. 82, 83, as of March 2009. The U.S. is the only nation that compensates nuclear test victims. Since the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act of 1990, more than $1.38 billion in compensation has been approved. The money is going to people who took part in the tests, notably at the Nevada test site, and to others exposed to radiation. 84, 85. In addition, leakage of byproducts of nuclear weapon production into groundwater has been an ongoing issue, particularly at the Hanford site. 86. Effects of nuclear explosions. Effects of nuclear explosions on human health. A photograph of Sumitomo Taniguchi's back in